Good morning and welcome to the Marketing Hire Trap, episode 3 of our Founder Conversation series. And this week we'll be diving into the key moments that can trip a founder up when they're making their marketing hire. I'm Anik and I'm a marketing hire and onboarding consultant. I help small businesses and startups make their first marketing hire. And joining me on the call today, as always, is Anthony. Over to you, Anthony.
Good morning, I'm Anthony and I run an HR consultancy, which I've been doing, looking at the calendar, for 26 years, about now. And we help businesses with all aspects of people and getting people right. So today is very much, as Anik said, about the marketing hire trap. And this logically follows on from our previous episodes where we're building the story of mistakes and traps that founders can fall into. And this is a discussion about what starts happening in a business when founders begin to look at hiring specialists in key roles. So we want to look at what sort of things trigger decisions to hire a marketer and why those things happen and what are the drivers. So why does hiring feel like a good step within the business at that stage, even when it may not be the case? So from experience, just picking up on a couple of those threads, triggers to hiring a marketer will generally be a lot based around growth pressures in many ways. And I guess that can be growth pressures from a positive or negative point of view, either people feeling that we've started to get some momentum, so we've acquired a few clients and this is going great, so let's go and get loads and loads more of them. So that has to be driven by something, or pressures that growth isn't happening quickly enough and therefore we need to do something. And again, marketing is one of those areas where founders will often look for sort of magic bullet or whatever to solve problems, because it's that bit of magic potion that can sort the business out. I guess the other thing that drives that mindset is also the fact that when you're a founder at that fairly early stage, you are pretty stretched. You're that sort of taking that role where you cover everything in the business, you know everything about everything, and you're all over it, and you start to feel a bit stretched. And marketing is one of those areas where it obviously requires considerable expertise, and therefore going to market to try and find a specialist to bring someone in can be really, really valuable and help make you feel better. But what are the risks about bringing someone in at that stage? And what are the signs around that as well? I guess risks wise, we'll go into a bit more detail, and Anik, I know, is going to share something in a moment which will really highlight some of this. But marketing is often seen as this solution and becomes this wonderful thing that will come and help us out, whether we're looking to grow very quickly because we're flying or we need to grow quickly because we're not. And it's almost just brought in as this wonderful emotional reaction, and it feels like you're making progress because we've finally arrived. We've got a marketing specialist in the team. We've got someone who really knows what they're doing, and they're going to be able to tap into the markets for us and identify perfect clients and find us great leads that we can really convert very, very quickly. And I guess the signs of that sort of happening within the business are when you're starting to feel that you're in a position where it's the right thing for you to do and you need to start doing that, but you actually haven't really got into the detail of understanding the why and what you're looking to achieve from this. And again, it fits into that narrative where we're talking about a lot around it. You know, it's not a strategy in its own right, hiring. It's a response to the strategy, and the strategy is something you really need to consider beforehand. So without me going into some narrative and theories at the moment, Anik has got a really fabulous story that she wants to share with you that really hits the nail on the head from this, and we'll go through a few of the points between us in terms of what was happening in that. So if I'll hand over to you, and I'm looking forward to hearing.
Yeah, I was speaking to a SaaS founder a few months ago, and they were at a stage where they wanted rapid growth, and they wanted to go from what they were the amount of clients they were taking on in a year, they wanted to take on in a month, every month. And they wanted to do it quickly. So those were the business goals. Those were the only business goals. So they hadn't sat down and clearly defined those business goals. Their ICP was broad, and as I just said, there was no clear business goals. The founder himself was actually stretched, and he was juggling all kinds of different priorities that competing with each other, and he felt that the growth wasn't actually happening fast enough. So he wanted to bring somebody in as the next logical step. We need a marketer. We'll bring somebody in. They'll help drive the growth. Yay, great, let's do it. Because I really don't have the time to try and figure this out myself. And that all in itself feels great, but like as you're just saying, Anthony, it's like you need at that point you need well-defined business goals, and you also need to have a well-defined ICP, especially if you want to scale quickly. You can't talk to everybody if you want to scale quickly. You need to have a well-defined ICP and kind of tap into a niche. So those were like the first foundations that were kind of missed. And then you hit the marketing hire trap. So when you hire a marketer, how do you decide which type of marketers you want to hire? This founder decided that they would hire a marketing executive with a few years of experience, and they thought that would be enough. They were holding onto the purse strings a little bit too tightly, but they found somebody who was strong in executing strategy, which they thought, brilliant, great, marketing executive, really strong in executing strategy. And they assumed that because they could execute the strategy, they could create the strategy, which are two very different things. So they hired the marketing exec at 28k a year. It's an executive hire with lead expectations. So there was a mismatch there. You expect somebody to come in and lead, you need to look and hire the experience so that person can actually lead. A marketing exec with a couple of years experience with only experience in executing strategy, and they executed it really well. Don't get me wrong, they were really good at their job, but they didn't quite have the skills that the founder was looking for. The marketing exec came on, they onboarded them with a 2 to 3 hour meeting and a spreadsheet, and they had all the standard HR onboarding, Anthony, the ones,
A tick list.
Yeah, the tick list, the health and safety, the digital security, and everything like this, but nothing really strategic. So they didn't give them a deep dive into product. They didn't show them around their SharePoint. They didn't give them the substance that they actually needed. So they had to lead their own product learning and discovery. They didn't map out any clear expectations or what the definition was of success, apart from the fact that they needed to like onboard however many clients it was each month. And they hadn't defined what a good lead looked like as well. So what's a good marketing qualified lead? What's a good sales qualified lead? There was no understanding between marketing and sales what that looked like. They were also missing the clarity of decision making. So what decisions was the marketing executive allowed to make? Was she allowed to manage the priority order? Were they allowed to decide on the messaging? Were they allowed to decide on spend? That wasn't clarified. And the founder put their hand up, and they were looking at it as cost. So they weren't really looking at marketing as something that it's going to pay for itself through driving the business forward and driving growth. They were very budget conscious. And in marketing, if you approach marketing as a cost center, you're already approaching it in the wrong way.
I was just going to. I wanted to just interject, and there's a real theme from the early stage of the story to me that there's just the assumption. There's a real assumption from the founder around everything that's happening. So there's very little detail or clarity. So going back to the how many leads you're looking to generate. So I can relate to that from the early stage of business of, someone saying, well, let's build a forecast. And you go, okay, we're doing really well. So let's go from this number to this one. And there's no basis. In fact, it sounds to me like they've just not done any real diving into what they want in any aspect of this.
Yeah, no. So what was definitely missing out of all of that was the clarity of the role. So there wasn't any clarity on the goals. There wasn't any clarity on the audience they were targeting. There wasn't any clarity on how like sales and marketing were working together on the leads, what a good lead looks like, the like decision making authority. There was a lot of like fundamental foundational elements that had been missed.
So setting someone up to fail is the phrase that popped into my head.
Yeah,
it really is someone innocently walking into an absolute nightmare.
yeah, and innocently is the right word, because many founders, if they don't understand marketing, they don't understand what you need to like set it up so marketing can really propel the business forward. And that's not the fault of the founder by any means. It's just a lack of knowledge. And with a lot of other roles, like an accountant, like a bookkeeper, like an administrative person you're taking on board, like they have defined roles already. Like if you take on accountant, the business wants them to do the accounts. They want, you want the accountant to save you as much tax as possible. They want you to like submit it all properly, and that the role's kind of already ready. But with marketing, there's a lot of input that's needed from the founder, from leadership, that needs to drive it forward. Marketing doesn't own its outputs. Its outputs are like fundamentally, what's the word I'm looking for? Fundamentally reliant on the inputs, which come from other departments like sales, like customer service, like the leadership, finance.
What happened? I'm intrigued as to what this person then sort of experienced in that environment.
Well, there were no regular leadership check-ins. So the founder hired the person, onboarded the person, and then went off, and they were concentrating on other priorities that were demanding their attention. So there weren't the check-ins. The only interaction that this person had was like the weekly sales pipeline meeting. So there were no really, which just discussed people in the pipeline and not what they actually needed, and not what they actually needed from marketing. So there was no real collaboration across teams, and in SaaS it's really important to have that collaboration, especially with customer service and product. And the marketing can't function, well, it can function in a silo, but it doesn't function to its potential in a silo. And what marketing did, well, they did what they were good at. They executed activity, and campaigns, outputs, like visible work. So the activity increased, which was great. But what the founder experienced, because the foundations were missing, because the experience that they actually needed from marketing was missing, they experienced no movement towards their growth goal. So they weren't hitting where they wanted to be. So the frustration starts to build because expectations aren't being met. And what the founder sees is that there's a lot happening, but it's not working. And that's where you get the marketing doesn't work for us idea from. And something I'm kind of like on a mission to knock on the head. But when we're in that kind of situation and we start feeling that we're out of control, that we're not moving to where we want to be, and we don't understand why, and we feel we're out of control, we kind of tend to step in and control the situation ourselves, and that's what this founder did. And so he stepped in, didn't try and diagnose what was going on, but he stepped in as just like, right, I'm gonna lead it from here. I'm gonna control it, which is a natural response to that kind of situation. So like, no fault or pointing fingers to anybody here. It's just a natural response. So when you start directing marketing reactively like that, relationships between the marketing exec and the founder, they erode, and 12 months later, the marketing execs found another job that's more suitable for them, and they've gone. And the founder was left 12 months on, after spending 28k on salary, plus all the equipment that they've had to get, and all the training that they've put in, and like all the national insurance and the market growth that's not happened, because they've just been basically treading water for 12 months, and their competitors have come up and gone past them. It's a lot of money to spend for it to just walk out the door.
And I would also imagine this, my vision and image of that is quite a sort of blamey environment as well. So that point at the founder regaining control, if you like, and the meetings where there's activity but it's not right, it's almost, without thinking about it, the blame is we've hired the wrong person. It's not us, it's that person that we've recruited. And you hear that story time and time again in founder conversations around, that was just the wrong person for us. And it's, I guess, very, very typical, as you say, in terms of that scenario. And not necessarily, doesn't have to be nasty, it doesn't have to be a horrible environment, but it's just the way it sort of pans and plays out.
Yeah, well, when that kind of happens, the founder gets it frustrated because the expectations are not being met. The marketer gets frustrated because they're not doing the work that's expected of them, and they don't know what's going wrong. So they kind of start losing enthusiasm for it, and it's actually nobody's fault. So this is not a story to kind of like blame that founder, because if you don't understand marketing, then how are you supposed to know? how to set one up properly so they can like really drive your business forward. And one of the things I bang on about it all the time, there's three things: clarity, alignment, and expectations. And you need that when you're making a marketing hire. And it was what was missing from this hire. So the first mistake was treating marketing as a cost center rather than a growth function. Because you hire a good marketer, they're gonna drive the business forward to cover their salary and then some. So looking at it as a cost center is like the wrong place to start. And then they hired an executive when they wanted a lead strategic role. So there was a mismatch there, and like no clarity on goals, on expectations, on the type of success metrics, and there was no input from the founder or the other departments. So they were kind of left to guess and go on their own way, and it didn't quite meet expectations. And expectations out of the three, out of clarity, alignment, expectations is like the most tricky one to get down, because how do you know what your expectations are if you don't understand the situation, or you don't understand, or you're not sure, you don't know what good looks like in marketing. So figuring those out is like a big thing, a big part of what I do is help people figure out what those expectations actually are.
But it's fundamental, going back to the very start of the story when we want to grow from this number of clients a year to that many a month. It's being able to define that client to the starting point, surely just understanding what we're looking for. I'm guessing that none of that had been done at all. It was just a fanciful, we're doing well, we can grow really quickly now.
Yeah. And it was also, well, it's not asking that much to grow from this many clients a year to this many clients a month. Then it's not that much of a leap. So we should be able to do it. And they could have done if they had clearly defined their ICP, clearly defined their goals, and hired the person with the strategic experience that they needed.
But that then really is where the cost, obviously one of the big messages we want to convey in these sessions is the impact of getting it right and wrong. And clearly, apart from the cost of the practical salaries, all the bits and pieces and paraphernalia, it's that lost opportunity that someone's really missed. If they could have genuinely made those numbers, then that's set them back 12 months while that person's been in post.
Yeah, exactly. And they've probably lost more money overall doing that than they would have spent on hiring the strategic person that they wanted in the first place.
Yeah.
And that person would have come in and driven the growth. So it's one of those things. Invest in the right solution and get the results you're looking for, rather than invest in a cheaper solution and it not quite meet expectations.
Wow, I mean, it is a salutary lesson. From our point of view today and in these sessions, what should they have done? In hindsight, if they could go back in time, what would have been the right way to have gone about that to actually maximise the opportunity they had?
Well, they should have clearly defined their business goals beyond just more clients. Like, so where do you want those clients to come from? Is it referrals from your existing clients? Which ICP did you want them to come from? Which product stream did you want to build them up from? So what does more clients translate into. And then the ICP, so beyond your clients, who are you talking to, rather than just create a persona, especially in SaaS. It's so, okay, so what industry are you targeting? And are you targeting the buyer? Because you've got the buyer and the end user, which are very different people in SaaS. So obviously you want the buyer to buy the product, but are you driving demand from the end user? Is that a useful way in? So kind of like who is your ICP? And you need to then decide and define what the success metrics are for marketing. It's how many MQLs, what's a good lead, how many MQLs do you want coming in, how many MQLs do you need to come in to convert to a client? So it's understanding those success metrics. And a really important thing, if you don't create collaboration in all the departments, is the alignment between sales and marketing. And if we're talking specifically about SaaS, customer service and product. Those, like the alignment and collaboration between those teams are like really, really important. And the relationship between marketing, sales and customer service is really important as well, because along the customer journey you've got one handing off to the other like all the time, and marketing's underneath that, like supporting it all the way through. So that collaboration is like really important. And they needed to have a clear role definition. Instead of an exec that needed to be experienced in all different roles, they needed a lead to be experienced in growing their business. So they needed to be experienced in that, and the different disciplines that the clients were already coming through with, rather than like a broad brush strategy creation, strategy execution, content, social, paid ads, email. The list tends to go on. So it's kind of like really understanding who you are. And structured onboarding. So what are your expectations? That not just a 2-hour meeting and here's a spreadsheet, off you go, but what are your expectations over the next 30, 60, 90 days? Because if a founder doesn't actually communicate their expectations, how's somebody expected to meet them? And they're going to have expectations that come up along the way. So how are you going to communicate those expectations that come up? So it's really kind of like a holistic environment that they need to create to support the marketer.
And the word clarity just keeps going through my head on all of the points. It's the sort of detail and clarity about each bit needs to be very clear. And of course, founder early stage businesses, we know in reality there's going to be lots of crossover and overlap and we all collaborate, but the reality is that you need to have a clear understanding of what we are, what we need, what it looks like, what success looks like, what this role should be, all of the interactions, who does what within the group. So yeah, clarity is a clear message. The other thing I wanted to touch on, because it relates to when we started, is what about how a business knows when it's the right time to hire marketing? Because I guess that's also very important. So the clarity is essential, but what about the timing of when it is a good time to bring in that specialist?
It's from my viewpoint, it's when the founder is clear on their business goals. And when they're clear on their business goals and marketing knows what that means for their business objectives, or even business owners know what that means for their marketing objectives. They're clear on their ICP, so they know who they're targeting. So it's like they know the direction they want to go in, they know who they want to target to get there, and they've got the environment in place that will support it. And I think most importantly, they've got the time to invest in the early days to help it grow, to input, to be there, to answer the questions, to be available, to tell them what they need, tell them what they want from the role, tell them, give them the budget that they can manage, that they can work with. The founders are ready to let go of control over certain areas, so the marketer has the autonomy to actually get on and do the role, and that founders are comfortable in handing over decisions to that marketer to free them up to do the role, rather than continuously having to go back to the founder to ask the questions, to get decisions made. The founder needs to be ready to let go. I mean, letting go of marketing in a company that you've built yourself, that's your baby, that's been born from an idea, and you've put blood, sweat and tears to create it, to get it live, to show it to the world. It's a personal role to hire for, because you're letting go a lot of the control. And you're trusting somebody to take that control and nurture it and do it justice, and not just do it justice, but do it justice in a way that resonates with you.
So getting it wrong costs you a great deal of money and sets you back, but getting it right absolutely will project you, and you'll be able to achieve and more the goals that you set within the business. It's so important to do the right thing, and founders do regularly fall into the marketing trap. So hopefully this a salutary lesson in what we've covered this morning.
Yeah, I think two of the heaviest hitting roles within a business are marketing and sales, because you're trusting people with your business, with the personality that you've built, with the values that you've built, with the identity that you've built, to project that to the outside world, to your audience and your clients. It's quite personal. I think, as we said before in an earlier episode, I don't think I'm ready to actually take on a marketer myself yet, because I'm too involved and I'm too picky about what I want to say and what I don't want to say and how I want to say it. And it's a very understandable position to be in. So founders need to be ready to kind of let that go.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully that was a useful session for everybody to learn from, and to avoid the marketing trap, to ensure that when they're ready, they're properly prepared to make the most of that hire when they take that first step.
Yep. And I know we've gone on a few minutes over, and if anybody does have any questions that have come up during the session or listening back, please don't hesitate to get in touch with Anthony or I, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks with the next episode, and we'll be looking at why your first marketer failed. We'll be going into more detail on that. So nice to chat with you again, Anthony, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Great to see you, Anik. Thank you all very much indeed. We'll see you very soon.
See you all later. Bye.
Bye.